I think coaching is huge. I think it's an awesome way for people to really grow and find their next level. And I think mentorship is huge. So, for that, I don't want to say a bad thing, make it sound like I'm saying anything bad about the coaching industry. It's just that, of course, like with anything, there's always some people that give it a bad name.
This episode is brought to you in part by TSE Certified Sales Training Program. It's a program designed to help new and struggling sellers improve and take their skills to a whole new level. Get access to the first 2 modules absolutely free. Find more information at thesalesevangelist.com/free course. This episode is also brought to you in part by Sales Success Summit. This year's Sales Success Summit is held in Austin, Texas from October 14th through the 15th. Learn from the top 1%ers in sales what makes them succeed and how you can improve. Sign up today at top1summit.com. Hey, everyone. Welcome to another great episode of the Sales Evangelist podcast. I'm your host, Donald Kelly, the Sales Evangelist, and I'm so excited for another great episode. I'm so excited to be here with you today. And on this episode, I'm bringing on a guest. Her name is Janet Clark, and she's a creator of Freedom Shift. The goal that she has is to help coaches and consultants scale and grow their business with high-ticket programs. She has worked with many entrepreneurs and helped them to scale and grow their business. And today she's going to talk to us about the heart flow sales process, what it is, why it's so important, and how we can take that and apply it to what we're doing today to find success in the way that we're selling to our prospects. Listen to our discussion. Welcome to the show, Janet.
Hey, Donald, I'm thrilled to be here. It's really exciting.
My fellow Floridian, because you're up in the middle part of the state. I'm down here in the southeast portion of the state. And, we both enjoy this beautiful weather down here. So I think we're going to have a good chat as Floridian friends.
Absolutely. And I am a snowbird. So I came from Massachusetts, but, I chased the sunshine and the warmth.
Hey, there's no arguing with that. Well, Janet, before we dive into all the fun stuff today, because we're going to hit up on this topic, I bragged about it in a teaser, how I was so excited to interview you, this heart flow sales process. But before we hit up on all of that, I want to hear about you. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about you and what you do?
Yeah, so I have a company, which is called the Freedom Shift. And basically what I am is a sales matchmaker. So I match high-ticket salespeople with coaches and consultants who are looking to expand their sales teams. And I do that through also helping these coaches with their lead generation and qualifying, because I find that very often it's difficult to match the salespeople if there aren't qualified leads to put on the calendar.
Oh my goodness.
That was the challenge that we had that I brought in my marketing partner to help fix.
And that's so true there. I mean, I think there's so often sales reps or coaches have a difficult time just telling their story to getting people to come into the boat. I mean, they're great at what they do, but it's just getting their customers. And I think that's a very smart thing. And that's very powerful. We'll put it back in our show notes because I'm sure there's a couple of people listening to this who are like, man, that sounds exactly what I need help with. So hopefully you can get connected with them.
Awesome.
So that's why I want to pick your brain a little bit today, Janet. I want to hear from you. You have this process, the heart flow sales process. First off, where did the name come from?
Okay, well, to give you a little background. I have a very extensive sales career, which started in corporate. So I was selling B2B for many, many years, building sales organizations for these large telecommunications and internet-based companies. And probably about 5 years ago, I started getting into selling high-ticket, high-transformation programs for some top-level coaches and consultants. And one of the things I realized, it was a different type of sale.
What do you mean by that?
So when you're selling in the B2B space and you're selling to somebody in a corporation, they're spending somebody else's money.
Yeah.
They're making a decision about spending a corporate budget. And while there is still some emotion obviously involved in that. It's more about making the right decisions so that they will keep their job.
Yep.
In transformational selling, when a coach or a consultant is selling to an entrepreneur who is somebody who's running their own company, or selling to somebody who is making a decision about investing in themselves in order to get a dream to come true or to reach a new level within, their own growth, they're spending their own money to do that. And there's a lot of things emotionally that come into play when you're talking to somebody as a salesperson about making this decision to make this high ticket investment in yourself. And what I found was that the key to doing that really well was to make this connection with people from the heart.
Yeah.
And that's how the name HeartFlow kind of came about. But HeartFlow is also an acronym for the sales process that I take people through. So each of the letters in HeartFlow stands for one of the steps sort of in the process. So there's 9 steps.
Oh, and I'm sure we'll tackle that in a little bit. You give us a little bit of breakdown about those 9 steps. I want to go back to something you shared though. And I think we probably all miss it as sales reps or sometimes as sellers when it comes back to the concept of, especially if you're selling something to a consumer where they're spending their own money. You mentioned that there's sometimes things that are overlooked. Maybe they didn't say it exactly like that, but sometimes that we don't pay attention to what that buyer, those emotions are. Do you remember that?
Yeah. Here's how I look at it.
Yeah.
2 things have to happen before somebody's going to invest in a high ticket program. And most of the programs that I am selling now and my clients that I work with are selling are coaching or consulting. So number 1, that prospect has to know that the program works. They have to feel a level of trust that the person that is delivering that program, that they have some level of trust with that person and they know the program works. The second thing is this question has to be answered within them is, but will it work for me?
Ooh.
And I find that really the marketing and the qualifying piece has to really answer that. Because if you're on a sales conversation with somebody and you're talking about the program itself and why it's good and who the coach is and whatever, it's not going to close.
Yeah.
They're not ready. So until that conversation really gets deep into what will it work for me, and that's really where their fears are coming up. They might not be able to identify that it's fear, but that's exactly what it is.
Yeah. And I think when you say it like that, I go back and put myself in a buyer situation where I've had those scenarios where I just felt, I feel sometimes that they don't understand me. I've made decisions where, I feel like the buyer or the seller just really didn't understand me. So I wasn't at peace with making a purchase. Am I making sense on that? Especially when it's a significant price.
Yeah. All about kind of calling out what's been going on in the world of high ticket sales.
Oh my goodness.
I think there's been a lot of really slick marketers and, really coercive people who have convinced people to make investments in programs that weren't necessarily going to give them the return that they wanted for that investment. So I think a lot of people have been burned because they were kind of manipulated into making these decisions. So the HeartFlow is the opposite of that. It's not hardcore selling. It's not manipulative, digging into the pain and then trying to make people feel like if they don't do this, that, they're going to wallow in pain for the rest of their life.
Your world's going to end because you didn't invest in my $10,000 program.
Yeah. And if you don't do it this very minute, you'll never get this opportunity again because we're pulling it off the table. And, I just feel that is manipulative and it's not heartfelt. It's not really helping. Now, on the other side of it, most people do need a push. They do need sometimes to borrow the confidence of the salesperson in order to make this big decision. And so there is a fine line there between being confident and really pushing somebody a little bit beyond their comfort zone and doing something that's manipulative and, has that ick factor in it.
Yeah. And I think that's where we've seen, like content recently, like, books like about being human and putting that part back into the sales process. Cause I feel that sometimes we don't. And I think it's like we are doing a job. So we don't realize that these people are humans that we're talking to and that they're going to make their decision based on their humanistic behaviors. We just see them as said buyer or entrepreneur and not this. And I get it. You need to have your ideal customer profile, but not everyone is a number or a name. There's someone behind that number or that name. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And those people, when they make this investment, they need to get a result. And if you are bringing the wrong people into the program or bringing them in by coercive ways, they're not going to get the result, which ultimately is not good for anybody. So nobody wants to be running a business with all of the wrong clients, right? Because you're just, if you're not succeeding, it's going to backfire on you at some point.
You ever had a situation like that in your career?
Oh my God. I mean, I've seen it so many times. I've bought into programs myself that I shouldn't have been in. I, like everybody else, I feel like we've hit critical mass where just about anybody in this world of high ticket has had this experience.
Yeah.
So yes, I mean, I've seen it. I've seen it from some of the programs that I've been in. I've seen it from people in my world. I've heard other people talk about it. So, but I also know there's a lot of really, really good, credible, high integrity people out there who are doing great work.
Yeah.
And so I think that there's, I don't want to give a bad name to the coaching. I think coaching is huge. I think it's an awesome way for people to really grow and find their next level. And I think mentorship is huge. So, for that, I don't want to say a bad thing, make it sound like I'm saying anything bad about the coaching industry. It's just that, of course, like with anything, there's always some people that give it a bad name.
Hey, I know it's going great, but we're going to take a quick break. And when we get back, Janet and I are going to pick up where we left off and continue to share with you how you and your organization can implement the Heartflow sales process. You're listening to the Sales Evangelist podcast, and I'm your host, Donald Kelly, the Sales Evangelist. Way too often we find sales reps who become lethargic in their career. You know what I mean? It's just kind of, you've been there too. You just go into the slump and you feel like you can't get out. You're not closing deals, no new opportunities. And it's just blah. What I've seen to help me at that point is obviously listen to podcasts like this, read books, but also attend events where I can connect with other sellers. People who could challenge me, people who could bring new ideas and new thought. And that's why I recommend everyone to check out Sales Success Summit. The neat thing about this event is that you get a chance to connect with other top 1%ers, people who are doing amazing in sales. Learn from them what's making them succeed, what's causing them to get out of their rut. How did they elevate to the status they're at right now in their companies? If you are serious about earning six figures as a sales rep, I highly recommend you go to top1summit.com. Again, top1summit.com and register to attend the event. Last year, one of the attendees, a sales rep for a small company, went to the event. He networked with other top sellers. Since then, he landed a position at Teradata where he closed a huge deal. Now he's receiving a multi-six-figure commission check from it. All because he went where iron sharpens iron. If you want to learn from the best, go to top1summit.com and register today. This episode is also brought to you in part by TSE Certified Sales Training Program. As a young seller, I just didn't have it. I didn't have any guidance. I didn't have any help, and I had to figure things out on my own. Luckily, I was able to take part in a group training course. Not long after the course, I started to see a hockey stick in my sales performance, and I knew this stuff worked. So I started to talk about it and share the advice and ideas, and I said in the future, whenever I create something, it's going to be similar to that. And that's how we've designed TSE Certified Sales Training Program. To get the first two modules of the course for free, go to thesalesevangelist.com/free course. Again, thesalesevangelist.com/free course. When you register and become a member, you will get the other 10 modules, as well as access to our community of other sales reps that you can connect with and join conversation with each week. find more information, again, go to thesalesevangelist.com/free course. Hey, as promised, we're back. And as we dive into the second half, we're going to continue to break down the heart flow sales process and how this could be beneficial for you. Now, I want to get into your process because you clearly have been able to, figure out what works, especially when it comes to this heartfelt process. And this is what I sold everyone on with this episode. This was a good preface towards it, and I loved it. What is that breakdown? I'm telling you, I'm anticipating. You give me those five. You said five. The five.
Well, there's really 9 because the word is heart flow.
Uh-huh.
But it's kind of, the heart flow is like there's 3 in the first section, 3 in the second, and 3 in the wrap up section, the close. So yeah, I'll give them to you really quickly. So if you were to write heart flow down the side of the page, the first H is, just the hello and kind of that greeting, right? Like hear what that client is, who are they, right? And kind of make that connection, which a lot of people would call build your rapport. E is explain how the call is going to go. So I think it's really important to set the stage right away as the salesperson that you actually do have an agenda for the call and that you are going to be taking them through a process that's going to result in you being able to steer them in the direction that's right for them. So, obviously I'm not going to go through all the details of all of these sections. A is ask. And we all know that's really the fact finding and the interviewing part of it. And I spend a lot of time when I do my training with people who come through my program to really talk about how to ask the right questions. And typically, what the typical objections are for any type of program. So to be able to ask those questions that would be the normal objection questions before there's any kind of pressure on people. So that piece of it, those 3 kind of make up the first part of the process. Now, occasionally you might get through the ask session and realize that the person is really not a qualified prospect, at which point you probably wouldn't really go on to the next part of it. You would probably direct them off to something else. R is recap, which is really just feeding back to them what you heard them say, making sure that they know you've been listening to them and that you have absorbed the information that they gave you. And
don't worry, it's Monday, so it's all good.
Yeah, exactly. It's only Monday and I'm already tripping over my words. T is a little different. T could be the transition point, right? So now you've kind of gone from the point where you're getting all this information to now you want to maybe start giving some information. But I call T teach. I think it's really important on a sales call to teach something that is something maybe that they wouldn't have been aware of and that gives them an aha moment. And I'll give you a little example of that. Typically in the business coaching space, a lot of people who are starting up businesses or trying to launch something new or grow their business beyond them just doing everything in their business, they don't realize that the reason why 80% of businesses fail really comes down to 3 things.
What's that?
And if I share, and I'll say to those people, would you like me to share what the 20% do who succeed that makes it different for them?
Yeah.
Right? So of course they say yes. And then I say, okay, number 1, businesses that succeed, they hire a mentor, somebody who's already done what they're trying to do to guide them so that they are not trying to reinvent the wheel and end up making a lot of mistakes. 2, they immerse themselves in a community of other entrepreneurs who are ahead of them and supportive of what they're doing, because our society is really not geared to entrepreneurship. Most people think you're nuts that you're an entrepreneur and they tell you, why don't you just go get a job, right? Because you want to hang around with people who are able to keep you motivated to mirror back to you your big dream and who are already successfully doing this entrepreneurship that you want to do. So community is the second. And then the third is they build systems. They put systems in place so that they can scale and they don't get crushed by having to do everything in their business. So just by teaching that little thing that they might not have actually, they might know some of it, but they haven't really learned it in that way. It's like an aha for them. Okay, I need those three things. So then F is feelings. So I would normally then say, well, how do you feel about what I just said?
Mm-hmm.
So now in most cases, they're going to tell you, oh, that it makes all the sense in the world to me. Yes, that I love that. And I get that. And I want it. Right. So that kind of brings that through that middle section, which is sort of the transition section. And then L is lay out the offer. So at this point, you explain to them that this program that you're going to talk to them about actually incorporates these three things that you just taught them about, and then how those things are built into the program.
Gotcha.
So I like, the laying out the offer to be much more about the benefits and the results, not necessarily, and there's going to be X number of coaching calls and they're going to be at this time of the day. And it's much more about what are the elements and the components that really make this program work that you're going to have access to.
Yeah, because that's why I'm signing up for this. I'm more concerned about the results that I'm going to see. If I'm going to put the 10 grand in, let's just say that's the case, then what kind of result can I expect from that 10 grand? Is that going to be like the transformation in a way that I run my business, transformation in, how I view my spouse, or whatever that I'm investing in?
Absolutely. Yep. So O is own the silence. So most people make the mistake after they lay out the offer of keep talking. But the best thing to do is own the silence. You could call this the part where, the O could be for objections. But I think when the sales process is done right, there's not a lot of objections. There's just, we don't know what's going to come up.
Yeah.
And so I think it's really important to mute yourself at that point, right? And just wait for that person to come up with whatever they're thinking.
Yeah. And I think that part is crucial. Sorry to jump in there.
No, that's great.
I feel that we just get awkward especially in our society, and especially as salespeople, because I think when we hear silence, we think that it's a bad thing. But silence may mean that I am thinking, and we feel that we have to fill the void, that emptiness, with us blabbering about the features and wonderful things that our company has done for the past 60 years. Like, no, I'm thinking about this. So just give me a second.
Yeah. And sometimes they're just thinking about which credit card they're going to put it on, right?
I know, right?
You're talking about something totally, not you, but any of us, about something irrelevant. And it can really undo a really good sale, right? So owning the silence is something, and you can probably tell just by having me on here that I like to talk a lot. In fact, my grandchildren call me Gabby. So I've had to really practice on that one, right? That's just been one of the ones that is easy for me, but it's very powerful.
Yeah, this is so good.
Yeah, and W is wrap it up. Right? Which is, you have to answer some questions, right? Whatever, you just kind of let them know how you're going to enroll them and go forward with getting them into the program.
Yeah. I feel there's a couple of things that I really resonate with me as the individual. I feel that as a sales rep, if I was going through this process, it gives me the direction, it gives me the comfort, it gives me the guidance, right? The other part to this too is it's not complicated. It is not overly complicated. And it just kind of shows that you can help and guide people down, make it a large purchase. It doesn't matter if it's $15,000 compared to something that's $5. If you follow a simple process like what you're sharing there, you can see amazing transformation, because you're helping a prospect to see that and see that you really care about them. You want to guide them. So those are some of the things that just quickly came from it right away for me.
Yeah. And, a lot of people who know me know that I am anti-script. Most people who teach or work with salespeople always feel like, well, where's the script? And I just don't like them. Mm-hmm. But I do feel like, okay, sales, yes, there is a science to the sales process, right? There is a way that the sales process needs to flow. There's a psychology to it, and there's an art to it. And every person brings their own individual artistic way that they can kind of do the process, but they still have to do the process. So what HeartFlow does is it allows you to be yourself, but still have a flow and stay on track to bring the client through an experience that will result in them wanting this transformation and saying yes.
Yeah, absolutely. So true. And I like, and I think it, like you said, it gives me the comfort to know that, yes, you're caring for me, even if it doesn't go through. And going back to the idea of the script, what I used to do is do outlines a lot as well. Like just, outline where I need to go. But I made a mistake once when I first started selling. I copied everything that my trainer was doing, everything. And then I quickly started realizing I was coming off like a jerk because I couldn't do it the way that he was doing it because he's confident in that way. I just have to I understood the process and then I had to make it Donald. I had to follow what Donald would do in a natural format. And that's how people really started connecting with you. Don't change yourself. Be human. Just help them and guide them in the process. So I just love that.
Yeah, I'm very much into that. And, I've been on sales calls on the, as the prospect, and I know when somebody's reading a script and it doesn't feel good because if somebody's using a script, then they're more interested in their next question than they are in actually the answer. And I always say to people, how would you know the next question that you should ask if you aren't listening to what their response was? Because in a normal conversation, if I was sitting with you in a coffee shop, I wouldn't be interrogating you. I would be hearing you and then responding to something you said. And I think that is the way a sales call should flow as well. It should be a normal conversation with somebody where you're helping them through a process of making a decision.
Ooh, love it. Dropping value on us today, man. I wish we could talk for like another 2 hours because
well, we'll do this. We'll do a reverse and I'll interview you on my podcast and we'll get your aspects of all of this and we can talk about it more.
Done. I would absolutely love it. That would be something I'll be, I'm always eager and excited when someone offer that invitation because I know that process and how your podcast is a sacred thing. And, to invite me to come on, talk to your community, I would love to do that and to bring something.
Well, I love what you're doing. I mean, this is really important. And one of the things I realized after when I first started looking for salespeople, because I match salespeople up, is that there's just not a lot of really good salespeople out there.
Oh, shoot. You're telling me, right?
Yeah. And some of the training isn't great. So, the fact that you're out there and you're, certifying people, I think that really is important. It's really hard for people in either the B2B space, but mostly these smaller businesses that are trying to bring on their sales team and get qualified, really good people. How do they know who's good?
They're just hiring their cousin's friend because he's an outgoing person. That's what happened to me before.
But if you think about it, I mean, these people have put their lifeblood into building these businesses. Most of the time, they were doing their selling themselves because they don't think anybody else can do it, or they're afraid to let somebody else represent them, with their prospects. So it really takes a good, qualified, high integrity salesperson to come along who can represent somebody's company in that way that is seamless, right? That makes that owner of the business feel confident that this person is representing them and not making all kinds of false promises and just signing anybody up for programs.
Yeah. It's amazing to me how often that happens. So it's just craziness. Janet, I got two questions for you before we go today. If there's one major takeaway you'd like listeners listening to this to walk away, what's a one major piece of advice?
Well, assuming you're a salesperson, then my one major piece of advice is make sure that you are doing it for the right reason. Make sure that you understand what your why is in this. And it can't just be to make a commission.
Love it. Now, folks out there listening, they say, I want to get a hold of this lady. She clearly knows what she's talking about. How do they go about connecting with you, Janet?
Oh, I'm out there in all kinds of different capacities. So I have a Facebook group, which is the High Ticket Sales Collaborative. And that's one way. Or on Facebook, obviously, you can find me, Janet Clark, The Freedom Shift, or just Janet at thefreedomshift.com.
Awesome. Well, we're going to put both of these back into the show notes. all of these resources so folks can get in touch with you and connect with you. But Janet, we appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate you having me on, Donald, and I appreciate everybody that listened in. And if you have any questions, obviously, I love to just connect with people, build relationships, and I really appreciate this opportunity.
Hey, it was an absolute honor. Thank you again. Telling you, man, this stuff was great today. If you want to connect with Janet, simply go back into the show notes. You can find all the details there, thesalesevangelist.com/the-word episode number 1184. Again, thesalesevangelist.com/the-word episode number 1184. Tell Janet that you heard her on the Sales Evangelist podcast, and I want you guys to check out her website. She also has a podcast. You can find all the details there on her site. Listen to the show, check out some of the content that she shares. Also see some of the programs that she has, the testimonials, and how she is helping other people. Perhaps she can help you individually. Maybe she can help your company, or maybe she can just help somebody else you know. So connect with her, learn from her, continue to grow and improve. If you stop learning and stop growing, you stop selling, man. You got to keep on your game and you got to continue to get new resources. In addition to us, I recommend you check her out as well. Again, find all the details in the show notes to salesevangelist.com/the-word episode number 1184. Also, check out my friends over at Sales Success Summit. Improve your sales game, learn from the top 1%ers of sales, and man, they got some good stuff that they're sharing. I recommend you take the time, go and invest, and go to the conference. Austin in October. Can't beat that. Also, if you have a new seller on your team or you want to improve your game, you feel like you're sluggish and you want to get back to the basics, check out TSE Certified Sales Training Program. It would be an absolute honor to have you join us for our next group training. Find all the details in the show notes. We share stuff like this because we want to help you. We explore and find the best guests because we know they can bring value to you and your team. We want you to find more ideal customers. We want you to be able to have more meaningful conversations where you're progressing your deals, and we want you to close more of those opportunities. Most importantly, we want to challenge you each and every single day to go out and do big things. Hey, I hope you enjoyed the episode today as much as I did. And if so, I ask that you leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Spotify, or wherever you find fine podcasts. Also, if you haven't done so already, why don't you go ahead and hit subscribe? Show your friends, your colleagues how they can subscribe as well. I will greatly appreciate you doing that. Thank you. My birthday is in the month of August. That could be your birthday gift to me. A nice review and rating on Apple Podcasts. I would truly be grateful for that. Our show today was produced by myself and the Sales Podcast Network. It was edited and mixed together by the one and only Jershino Bale. Our graphic designer is Mr. Desin Cunado. Our show note was created by the one and only Miss Rael. Our guest coordinator is Mrs. May Marr. Our podcast production manager is Mrs. Shannon Rasmussen. You can find audio credits to this and all of our episodes in the show notes. And as always, I am your host, your coach, your mentor, your guide down the sales journey, Mr. Donald C. Kelly, the Sales Evangelist. Sales Podcast Network.